Dylan, hey, welcome to the podcast. Thank you for joining me.
Thanks for having me, Reese.
No problem at all. So, first, we'll start off with a quick introduction. So, if you want to introduce yourself and say what you're working on, we'll go from there.
Sure. So I am Dylan Winn-Brown. I run a company called Spaceworks, which is a web design, web development agency, primarily building Squarespace websites, so custom designed websites on the Squarespace platform, so they're easy to manage, low maintenance for our clients once we hand them over. And yeah, I've been doing that for 6 or 7 years now. And that's kind of my main business at the moment.
Awesome. So, how did you get into that space?
So it all started originally, I just kind of as a side hustle. I back in the day was doing kind of graphic design, some video editing, basically any service that I could sell through Fiverr or what was, I think, before it became Upwork, it was called Elance at the time. Any service basically that I could to try and make some money. And I started off building websites with a tool called Weebly, which I believe is pretty much dead now. But that was the first kind of website that I'd ever built, and I was able to charge like 150, £200 or something like that at the time, which was a lot more than I was charging for video editing. And I just really enjoyed the process. So from there, I started building more websites, WordPress, all different platforms, and eventually found Squarespace, built a couple of sites on that, and just found it so much easier to work on, so much more enjoyable to use. And then I decided around 2018 to kind of go all in on Squarespace and pretty much stop doing WordPress sites and other platforms. And yeah, it's been a bit of a journey from there. Hired a team, went back to freelancing, then kind of rebuilt a team, and yeah, that's how we got to where we are today.
Awesome. Weebly's a great one. I used to use Weebly. That was when I first started as well. I started off WordPress and Weebly were the two that I used and played around with. Because before I got into no-code app development, it was all websites as well.
Hmm.
Yeah, I remember that they released like an agency model as well. I think
Yeah,
it's still around. Yeah, really really good. It was really good bit of kit. I think it is still going. But yeah, obviously a lot has changed since then. So, what brought
yeah.
you to Squarespace in terms of settling with that? What was it about Squarespace that was different to everything else on the market?
Yeah, I think the main thing at the time, and now there's more options, but the main thing at the time was the fact that, I was coming from a background mainly building WordPress sites at that point in time. And when you were to do that, you had to set up a hosting plan. If the client didn't know what hosting was, you'd have to kind of either get one set up yourself and then bill them for it every month. And then you have to download WordPress, keep it up to date. Otherwise, it would get hacked and stuff like that. You had to install plugins just to have like a slideshow kind of component. And so when I first used Squarespace, it kind of took away all of that pain. There were some limitations. WordPress is very flexible, very customizable, but basically it was a bit of a trade-off in terms of, I'll give up some of that customizability to be able to build a website on a platform that just makes the process so much more seamless. And also for clients, I realized how easy it was for them to log in to make updates without messing anything up. With WordPress sites, normally I'd build it, kind of show them or how to manage it or give them a bit of a guide on how to manage it, but nothing would ever change. And then 6 months or a years later, you'd log in and some plugin would have broken and the website would be all over the place. So yeah, that's kind of what how I settled on using it. And at the time when I kind of niched into that part of the website market, it was a very, very small number of designers that were building on that pretty much exclusively. Today, it's a much bigger platform. There's a lot more designers that work on Squarespace or exclusively on Squarespace. So yeah, I think that it was really just the ease and the seamlessness and the fact that you could log onto it, build a website, connect up or buy a domain if you didn't even have one, and it was all under one roof. And it kind of felt like an Apple experience in terms of everything just being done for you. It just kind of worked. So yeah, that's kind of why I enjoyed at the start working with it more than the other platforms.
Awesome. And you mentioned niche when you were speaking there. Have you found a particular niche comes to you or comes to Squarespace generally more than others, or have you got any focus on a particular niche?
Yeah, I mean, we don't focus on any particular niche, and to be honest, like Squarespace almost is our niche. Our niche is custom designed Squarespace websites. So going beyond what, a regular Squarespace template would look like, we normally do bespoke designs in Figma, something like that, all, completely bespoke to the client using their branding and everything, rather than just pulling a Squarespace template and filling it in. But that's kind of our focus. That said, there are definitely industries that I would say it attracts, and I think people like Squarespace because of the aesthetic of the templates and the platform that it offers. And so it's generally a lot of, I guess, creatives. So it could be, photographers, designers, agencies, that kind of side of the market. But it's also expanding much more beyond that. We've done non-profit websites, business B2B websites, professional services. It's not the best for e-commerce, especially if like a brand wants to really scale ambitiously, but we've done smaller e-commerce sites as well. So yeah, pretty broad and varied, and that also makes it more enjoyable in my experience, working and kind of seeing behind the scenes of different business types as well as rather, I guess, than just the same type of business over and over again and just building the same website again.
Yeah, I think with e-commerce, Shopify, I think has that particular industry, that particular market kind of sewn up.
Yeah.
And I think all these different no-code platforms definitely have benefits and drawbacks. So for us with app development and software development, Bubble is obviously the go-to, and that's what we focus on. Similar to how you've focused exclusively on Squarespace for websites, we focus exclusively on Bubble. Where do you see Squarespace going in the next few years? Do you think they're looking to change focus or even go further down the ecom route or more into the no-code app side? I mean, do you have any insights into where you think as an agency owner Squarespace might be heading?
Yeah, good question. So things are definitely changing, and I think they're starting to move away from like being the best website builder tool that they can be into more of like an online business toolkit, if that makes sense. Squarespace was up until not that long ago, a publicly traded company. It got bought private by a private equity firm. And so even in the time that they've bought that out, you can start to see they're adding in all of these new kind of features, products that are essentially going to be revenue generators for them. So just to give you an example, you can send proposals through Squarespace now, invoicing through Squarespace. You can obviously sell products through their e-commerce capabilities on the website. You can build courses on it. You can build membership sites. So they're kind of, I see it as more of a platform now for like a general online business toolkit. You can build your website, you can run your email list, you can sell products, you can sell a course, like all of these different components that they can bring into one. Whereas as far as I'm aware, there's not really any other products on the market that are doing all of that. There's Webflow, there's Shopify, and those kind of all are, best in class tools for a specific use case. But I think Squarespace and the way they're going is more, for the small, medium-sized business owner, how can they try and almost own the digital
Mm.
online presence of that business? And so yeah, that's I think the route they're going. They're starting to charge obviously like payment processing fees on invoices that might get paid through their platform. So it's all of these kind of smaller tools that they can kind of bolt on, and I think that's, in my opinion, that's the route that they're going.
So it's almost becoming a bit of an ecosystem for the SME market, for the
Yeah.
startup market to kind of design, build, and then grow the business and everything around it, all your invoicing, all your extras around it as well, which is probably a smart move for them.
Yeah, 100%. I think they're definitely going that way rather than trying to build like the most complex, advanced website builder tool. Like, you've got Webflow, you've got Framer. Those tools can probably do a lot more than Squarespace can, definitely at least out the box. If you wanted to replicate some of those types of websites, that you can generate with Webflow or Framer in Squarespace, you would have to write, a lot of custom code. So I think yeah, like I said, their angle is more, okay, well, if we can provide the tools to create a good looking professional website. You don't have to worry about your hosting. You can run your emails through our platform. You can do all of these different almost monetization methods and models through our ecosystem, as you said. Then I think that's their play.
And what's interesting there is they've obviously taken, quite a few years for the life cycle that, or the lifetime that Squarespace has been around for. They didn't launch trying to do all of that, solve all those problems. They've left it however many years before starting to bring in all these other different features and aspects of the platform. And one of the things that we see with clients who come to us with app ideas or software ideas, especially if they're a first time founder, they're they're trying to build that version of Squarespace
Mm,
for whatever their idea is, with every bell and whistle, every feature, trying to capture and create an ecosystem before they've even kind of got one user, which is something we always have to reiterate, that just focus on one thing, do something well
yeah.
for an extended period of time. In this case, it's obviously web design for Squarespace, And then once you've captured a big market segment, you can then start to introduce value adds around that. But trying to go after that at the very beginning, I imagine would have been very, very difficult. So it's an
Yeah.
interesting strategy that they've used.
Yeah, 100%. I think the way, you know, they're kind of going is almost to let the market dictate the direction they build the product in. And totally agree with you in terms of, if it's even a website, we often advise clients to think of a website as, okay, what does phase one look like? What does version one look like? If it's a new business, do you need a 20-page website? Probably not. Do you just need a website that basically, looks professional, represents the brand well, but introduces who you are, what you do, how you can help your clients, your target market, whatever it may be? That's normally enough for version one of a website. And then you can always build on it. It's digital by nature, right? One of the best things about that is that you don't have to think of a project, website, software, whatever it may be, as once and done. You can always do, okay, what's the MVP? And then how do we iterate on that and build on that? And like you said, you get feedback from users, you get insights into the way the market's shifting, that it's heading, and then you can kind of factor that into your product, your website, whatever it may be. And over the longer term, I think that's how you kind of build the best products. It's based on feedback and yeah, taking on board what other users have said essentially when they've started using the product.
Yeah, awesome. And do you think for you personally that Squarespace you would consider it a no-code platform? I mean, what's your background? Did you study engineering, coding, or did you go straight for the no-code route with Squarespace, if you would even call it no-code?
Yeah, so I mean, I would call it no code because for most of their users, that's what it is. No code, low code, right? You can add code, you can customize it. There are limitations on what you can do with it. So I wouldn't say it's fully, customizable, but you can, at least on the front end, visually customize it quite a lot. In terms of my background, I never went to university to do computer science or took any kind of formal coding lessons, education courses, even online. I essentially started by just copying and pasting kind of code snippets. Actually, one of the first things I used to do was when I'd build Weebly sites, they had a free plan at the time, but it would have like a made with Weebly watermark at the bottom. So one of the first things I do was like, or I did was found code snippets online that would, hide that, allow it to look a little bit more custom and professionally branded. And it was more just from reading Stack Overflow, that there's like a big kind of code forum online, and asking questions on there, that I slowly started to teach myself the basics. I'm not a engineer, by trade. I can do some kind of basic coding and front end coding I can do. But beyond that, I've not really needed to. And I think also now with AI, that changes a lot. You've seen tools like Lovable. I don't know if Bubble has a similar offering
Mhm.
to that. Replit, all of these tools, even ChatGPT, right, where you can kind of prompt it and it will write the code for you. So I've used that a lot on projects, especially where it's more functional. I don't think it works as well if it's visual, at least in ChatGPT from my experience. But yeah, I think it's probably less important now to know how to code and be like a full stack developer than maybe it used to be.
I get this question a lot with regards to whether I feel threatened by AI generators for app development and software development. Do you
Mm.
see AI sort of coming for your job, or do you see it as something that you can use, and do you use it within the business already?
Yeah, absolutely. So a lot of people have also asked me that. I don't see it coming for my job yet. In the future, that could change. I don't know. We'll see how quickly and how well it develops. I think what it's good for now, there's a couple of different things. Firstly, is kind of content generation and ideation. So, if I'm building a website, let's say for a client, or even for my own business, and if I'm redesigning my existing business's website, I can get feedback and ideas very quickly using AI if I just prompt it and say, this is what I do, this is what I want. Can you give me a sitemap and the sections that I would want in each page? Can you, give me a basic page full of copy that I can then shape and customize for my business? Like it's for me, it's more a tool to speed up the process, make things a little bit more efficient at this stage, and do tasks which maybe I would have had to either outsource previously or I could try and do myself, but I wouldn't have done a great job. I think in terms of people being able to log on to a platform and prompt their way to like a perfect website, I don't think it's there yet. Couple of things and reasons why. Firstly, if you're to go and generate a load of code for a website with ChatGPT, the average user who's done that isn't going to know how to install that on a server, how to
Mm.
connect a domain name. Like there's still those pieces missing. And secondly, a website is more than just what it is visually and what the user sees. It's kind of the thinking behind that and also looking at it from a business point of view. And as web designers, our job is basically to understand how websites can work as best possible for our client's business type. And so if they don't have that experience because they're busy running their own business, they don't know what features, functionality they could add to their website to make it as good as it can be, or how best it can serve them necessarily because they've got that tunnel vision. Um, so yeah, I think for me, it's more of a tool to speed up the process. It is good for writing very specific pieces of code for, a specific function or feature if you want that on a website. But beyond that, for me and for us at this stage, it's not, I don't think it's there in terms of coming for our
Yeah.
jobs just yet.
There's so
Do
much
you,
more to it, isn't there?
Sorry, I was going to say, what's your kind of opinion on that?
Yeah, I think there's so much more to it. Like you're not just generating code, you're not just generating websites, you're not just generating apps. There's so much more that you provide as a service provider, which is all the consultation around it, all of
Yeah.
the questions that you ask to draw and extract information from a client to actually bring a successful outcome for them. Because often clients don't necessarily know exactly what they want or what they need. They have
Mhm.
ideas and they might have an end goal, but it's part of our job and part of our processes that we've had and built up over the last few years to ask the right questions, understand what they might be aiming for, and then structure a project to actually fit that end goal. And
Yeah.
it's less about the work of actually just building. It's
Mhm.
it's everything that sort of is required to get to that build stage to even start with, and then evolve a product or evolve a website. Because a website is essentially a product. It's a doormat to the website. It's the first thing that people see when they engage with the business outside of
Yep.
social media. So there's a lot more strategy and a lot more behind the scenes that comes into play. And I think really the only types of client who would DIY and do it themselves are clients that wouldn't have come to an agency or come to an expert like you or I
Mhm.
beforehand anyway. So I never see it as a business loss. I see it as tools and services we can use to make our processes better and more efficient
Mhm.
and help our clients get to a end goal much, much quicker than replacing us, because those types of people that are doing it themselves we would have never spoken to and they would have never spoken to us previously because it just wouldn't have been the right fit. So I don't see it as a threat. I see it as a massive, massive benefit so far.
Yeah, 100%. And what I would also say is like people often that try to do it themselves, they'll very quickly realize that it's not as simple as they think. Like they might be able to get a really nice UI generated for a web app or a platform that they're looking to build, but then I know you've actually spoken about this before, I believe, but like all of the stuff that goes on behind the scenes, privacy rules, all the database structure, like they have no idea what they're doing with that. I don't even know what I'm doing with that if I was to build an app. And so that's where, you are a professional. So you would bring in a professional to help with that problem. And I think also what you said about consultation is super valuable because even yesterday I had a call with a prospect who was looking and kind of considering building a website very similar to what you said actually. She was kind of weighing up, do I do it myself? Do I hire an expert to do it? And she basically didn't need a hugely complex website, but she'd only ever been pitched, like a really high-end, huge, heavy investment project for a website, or the other option in her head was, okay, I'll do it myself, but it's going to take me time. What I said was, if you don't actually need a 10-page website with like an SEO strategy, which you didn't, you can build a one-page website. We can help you build a one-page website, which is going to deliver what you need, which is basically just to introduce who you are, your service offering, and push people to booking a call. That's all she needed to do. But she hadn't had that kind of consultation from other service providers. She'd just been pushed packages. And then when she realized that, or when she heard that, she realized that that was actually probably the perfect fit for what she needed and where she was at. She didn't really want to do it herself, but she also didn't really want to pay someone 5 or 10 thousand to build a big website when it didn't need that. So I think that kind of consultation is super valuable, and a lot of people overlook that as well. They don't kind of factor that in always.
And how do you price projects at the moment? Do you do a custom setup by the sounds of it, or have you tried packages previously, or like an unlimited design, one of these new kind of design joy style packages? How does it work with you?
Yeah, so we've tried a lot and we're still trying a lot. I'm always playing around with different kind of offers essentially. For most of the company's lifetime, it was always kind of custom proposals, custom pricing for projects. Now what we've started moving towards is more of a kind of productized service, I guess you could say, but with still the ability and the option to sometimes do bespoke quotes or bespoke projects. So we do have kind of like a one-page website, which is basically what I mentioned to the that I was speaking to the person yesterday about. That's a one-page website, and that's really designed for people that, they may not have the budget for a full website, but they probably don't need one. So that's one option. We have an essentials package, it's called, which is like a five-page, website that's it's still custom designed. It's for most businesses, that's probably the best fit. It's a home page, about page, services page, maybe a blog and a contact, something like that. And also just baking in, some basic SEO, really just giving them what they need to get up and running and in a professional way. That's kind of our best seller package. And then beyond that, we'll do bespoke projects. So if it's e-commerce or if it's a much bigger project, we would do a custom quote for that. We do also have or I've just kind of recently started up a sister brand, a sister company, which is more of a design on subscription. So the way that we're doing that is white label, basically web design services and web development services for other agencies. So if there's a lot of kind of freelancers and agencies in the Squarespace space who are much more on the creative side. They like doing the branding, the look and feel, working on the content with the client, but they probably don't actually all like doing the building of the website, connecting up the domain names, the technical side. And so what we're trying to do with that business is to basically provide a access to our team of experts who can be basically tapped into on a white label basis on a subscription, so you can start it, cancel at any time, and basically provide overflow support. So if an agency is too busy, they can tap into our team. If they just want to do the design and they want someone to handle the build, they can tap into us for that. So we'll see how it develops. And we're trying to build, a full stack of services so that we can kind of capture somebody wherever they're at along, you know, the kind of, I guess, timeline in terms of some people just getting started, some people needing much more complex projects. So yeah, we'll see how it goes. For now, like I said, we're just kind of playing around with it and always experimenting. But that's kind of how we package stuff for now.
One of the biggest mistakes I think agency owners make is they try and sell one particular thing to one type of customer, and then just rinse and repeat. And I think to build a bigger agency, to build a better agency, is to offer a suite of services, complementary services, or just different ways of working.
Yeah,
So I really like that, the overflow package. I really like the idea of like white labeling, or not even necessarily white labeling, but allowing other agencies to tap into your expertise and your resources when they're stretched. And also you benefit from them managing the client and then managing all the
yeah,
requests and scoping and everything like that. And you just fulfill it as a sort of an execution partner for the actual project. So that's actually something we're looking into now, is trying to work with more business consultants and technology consultants and products people to have them manage their end clients, and then we actually build the software or build the app based on all of the scoping work and everything that they've done. And then the leverage there is massive, because if we can get a handful of product consultants who have their own client sets, they're going out prospecting, and then
yeah,
we're actually fulfilling the work. And that's a huge point of leverage, which has been very difficult for us to achieve and us to figure out. And we're still trying to figure out the marketing angles. I sent an email out yesterday to some of those clients that we have on the consulting side to to
hmm
try and find out what motivates them, what they look for in a partner, for that kind of project execution. And it's still something we're trying to figure out from a advertising and a content point of view. So it's an interesting space, and I think white label and grey label and partnerships is definitely a way to go from a small agency to becoming a medium agency, which I think is definitely on the radar, obviously for you guys by the sounds of it.
yeah, hopefully. Yeah, no, I totally agree. And I think also like a lot of people would say, we don't want to give away the margin, we're going to be able to charge less, which is true. If somebody's going to manage that client relationship for you, essentially, then they should be given a margin basically for that. They should be marking up your services. But I think just in terms of like building out a more scalable operation, if we can get it to work, I think it's a really good route to go, just because, like you said, the client or our client manages the end client. All of the scope creep is on them. They're just paying us on subscription, monthly retainer basically, and then they can just filter through work to us. And I think if we can do that, I'd actually prefer to just take a bit of a hit on the margin, but just have that predictability, and be able to put my team, in contact with our client who's not the end client, and they can just deal with everything between them, because the whole project management piece and all the back and forth that you normally manage with an end client is actually a cost to the business, but a lot of people don't really factor that in. But it's a lot of time spent and therefore cost. So if we can save that, it'll be a big help. But yeah, it's very early stage, so we'll see how it develops.
Great. And how do you get clients at the moment? What's the biggest driver for you? What's the main channel of acquisition?
Yeah, good question. So we primarily get most of our clients, I would say, through our partnership with Squarespace. So we are one of their kind of platinum circle members, they're called, and official experts. So it's kind of, they have an invite only program, I think similar to Bubble, if I'm not wrong.
Hmm.
Yeah, where they basically have a pool of people who've built enough websites of a certain standard on their platform, and then over time they kind of invite people into this platform, and that is, they provide essentially a platform that matches Squarespace users with experts. So they can filter by industry that we've worked with before, by location, and Squarespace clients, Squarespace users can be paired with an expert like ourselves. So that is probably the biggest lead driver. Last time I checked, it was around 60%, which is probably a little bit higher than I want it to be. But apart from that, we get clients from organic, referral a lot, and yeah, repeat clients, I would say, as well. So especially the last month or so, we've really started to see a big uptick in repeat clients that we've worked with before that want to make some updates, coming into Q4, the end of the year now. So that's always good to have as well. And the way that we've tried to go with the agency is, consciously not going too high ticket and higher volume. We don't want to be super low ticket and high volume, because it's just death by a thousand cuts. But if we can kind of find the balance in the middle where we've got quite a lot of clients who are paying us decent amount for projects, what we found is that those, you've got scale, because those, you're working with, let's say, 20 clients over the period of a couple of months or a few months, whatever it may be, that can then refer you to their networks, rather than like two or three huge clients where you've got a much smaller potential referral network. So that's kind of the been a conscious decision. But yeah, that's kind of the
That's really
main
interesting.
lead source. How about yourself? How do you kind of get most of your leads?
Yeah, it's an interesting one. I think for us, we do a lot of meta advertising. We also do
Mm,
Google. We do Google SEO, search engine optimization. We actually got a lead the other day who found us through ChatGPT, searching
okay.
for
Yeah.
UK bubble developers, and I think that's an area that is now becoming more of a focus. But one of the drivers behind getting promoted or pushed on these AI chat systems, chatbots, is by putting out consistent content
Hmm.
into the search engines through blogging and that kind of thing. Because obviously Google sees that it ranks us higher, and then the LLMs are trained on and can research information on the internet live. So if we're ranking higher for
Hmm.
bubble developers in the UK or bubble development or whatever, we're more likely to be pushed by the new way of searching, which is obviously
Yeah.
ChatGPT and AI searches. So I think that's an area of focus, and I think that's something that a lot of people are sleeping on at the moment, or they don't fully understand. Is
Mm,
SEO is quite an unsexy strategy for getting leads because it takes so long to do. But we're
yeah.
in this sort of inflection point where if you invest in it now, it's not just Google you're ranking higher in, it's all of the new ways of searching through all the AI systems. So it was quite interesting to see that. And we've also tried outbound. We've got a team who does outbound calling as well to our sort of ideal customer profile.
Hmm.
But that would lead me on to the next question, which would be, have you noticed a difference in lead quality based on the channel they've come from?
Um, to an extent, it's, yeah, interesting question. So I think there's probably some loose correlation. The Squarespace partnership are often those types of customers, clients are often people that have already started a website in the CMS, in the back end of Squarespace, there's multiple times and options where a user can click hire an expert. So if they've kind of come that route, they are likely to maybe be a little bit smaller. Maybe they've tried doing it themselves and maybe struggled. And so that's why they thought, I'm going to outsource this or give it to an expert. So those clients tend to be smaller. That said, our biggest ever client also came through that exact same um, partnership through that same channel. So it's very varied. I would say referral clients tend to be a little bit more consistent in terms of, they're probably at a small to medium sized business. Um, they're probably a better fit on average overall, but we've not had the bigger clients come through that channel. There's also more limited exposure, right? So generally, if you're working with, let's say, companies that are like 2 to 10 employees in size, most of the referrals are going to be that size. Because those are probably the networks that they're in, etc. But if you're working with much bigger clients, obviously you get, like I said earlier, maybe fewer introductions, but bigger clients. So it's kind of swings and roundabouts. Um, but yeah, I have tried ads. Weirdly, when I first tried it, I was getting good results. I've only ever run Google Ads, so I keep meaning to try Meta, but I've never pulled the trigger on that yet. But with Google Ads, at the start, I was getting good results. I was paying about 60 to 70 pounds per booked call, and I was closing 1 in 3, 1 in 4, maybe of those. So that was a pretty profitable. I then noticed a bit of a decline in terms of the quality over a period of time. With those, I've kind of put ads on pause, tried them again, and I've never quite had the same results. I think there are more agencies running them now, especially for Squarespace. When I started doing them, I was probably one of the only people that was running Squarespace web design ads or Squarespace web design agency, whatever we were targeting. Um, but yeah, that I would say has actually declined more over time in terms of like lead quality, PPC, and paid ads.
Interesting.
Have you
Okay,
found the
and
same? Or?
yeah, I think it really depends. And I go through these different phases of trying different strategies and probably not giving them long enough to actually mature.
Mhm.
I think Meta has a real mixed bag. We get some great clients. We also get a lot of leads that just aren't the right fit, despite whatever systems we have in place to try and pre-qualify. It's often very difficult uh, to kind of, when you're dealing with cold traffic, you're always going to get people who are just looking, just sort of researching and not really in a position to buy, and probably wouldn't be for a foreseeable future. So I think it's a very difficult
Mhm.
thing with cold traffic. And we'd like to maximize referrals, and we're looking now at running ads and campaigns to get acquisition partners who will refer business to us.
Yeah.
But it's just something that is, I think it's part of business. And you're right, Google Ads, the quality has definitely dropped. We used to run Google Ads and we got some of our biggest clients through it, and then suddenly we got nothing as a result
Mhm.
after that. So it's very strange. It's a very strange landscape, and that talks a little bit to focus, which is an area that I like to ask the guests on the podcast about. So, in terms of your focus as a founder, it's very easy to maybe get distracted. Are you good with
Mhm.
staying focused? Have you said no to anything recently? Any good opportunities? How does focus work for you?
Yeah, so my focus on the whole, I would say throughout the time that I've owned the business has been pretty consistent, which I actually look back and I'm quite happy and proud of that. I've generally just stayed in my lane, doing what I'm doing, trying to get better and really focusing on the work that we do, the clients that we're working with, and building out better systems, better processes, better team. More recently, I have started to get a little bit of shiny object syndrome, but I think, I've never gone too far down that rabbit hole to the point where it's affected like the main business. Even when I say that, it's more a case of now, like what I was talking about earlier with the white label kind of subscription, like they're complementary, just different ways of packaging up our team's capabilities, skill set. And I think, if I can stay focused and disciplined on that, I'd rather do that. I almost always say no to anyone who's trying to, for lack of better term, use my expertise for their own kind of startup ideas that they've got in return for some equity or something. Like, I just don't get involved with that. I'd rather kind of stay focused doing what I'm doing. My plan is for now to operate the business as a cash flow vehicle, and basically use that to fund other investments. Longer term, potentially look to sell the agency and move on to do something new. But I think I'd much rather focus on that as the big goal, and cash flowing in the meantime, rather than trying to build multiple things side by side. To me, and the way my brain works, like I'd rather build one thing, get it to an endpoint, be able to transition that to something new or someone new who's looking after that perhaps, and then I can kind of reset, go back to the drawing board and think, okay, what do I want to build now, knowing everything that I've learned from the lessons of running the current business.
Love it. Yeah, great way of doing it. Great way of doing it. In terms of content, are you listening to anyone? Do you read much? Do you have any authority figures that you kind of follow?
Yeah, I've kind of gone through waves, I would say, over the last few years. I've watched all of the kind of big gurus, watched their content. I consciously now don't actually watch as much content just because I find that it's actually contributed to me getting that shiny object syndrome and starting to look around at all these different opportunities, mainly because I would probably find web design related content quite boring. So I end up, watching content about running a course business or not
Hmm.
e-commerce. I've not gone down that route yet, but like all of these other kind of creators, and then it diverts my focus. So to be honest, now my main focus is on the business as it is. Like I said, I don't really watch, I try not to watch people that are going to distract me from that and almost give me ideas subconsciously about something else that I could do. I do want to potentially explore SaaS, but I'm consciously holding off on that until I've got the bandwidth and potentially some capital to explore that with. So yeah, I've got ideas around that. I'd definitely like to look into that in the future, but for now, trying to not get too tempted by it.
Great. And final question, I ask this for to every guest on the podcast. If I could wave a magic wand to make one thing come true in the agency this year, what would that look like for you?
Interesting question. I have two things that come to mind, but I'm going to say I'd like to get the white label offer off the ground, get a good kind of number of clients in, because I think if we can do that, that could be a game changer for the agency as a whole. Mainly because I think it will just bring us a little bit of stability with cash flow. Not that that's been a huge issue because we generally have smaller projects that are coming through more frequently and they don't take as long, but I think that could be a really big yeah, game changer really for the business. Up until now, I've thought a lot about potentially selling, potentially exiting. When I look at it like that, and I think if I had 10 agencies that were all paying us a few $1,000s a month to basically tap into our team, would I actually want to sell the business? Potentially not. So I'm going to say that. That's my answer. But we'll see what happens.
Fantastic. Dylan, it's been a pleasure. Thank you very much for joining. Really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me on. Appreciate it. Thanks,
All the
Reese.
best. Take care.
Cheers.